If 1994 was the vocal Olympics, 1995 was a riot. The stadium burned down, the rules didn't matter, and the polished, gown-wearing diva was suddenly under attack from all sides. I told you 1995 was going to be a bloodbath. Alternative rock was kicking down the door. Hip-hop was demanding a seat at the pop table, and the biggest stars in the world were either going bankrupt, going to court, or reinventing themselves entirely. Welcome back to the main Pop Girl. We're looking at 1995, a year defined by legal battles, tragedy, and the single most important genre shift in modern pop history. This wasn't just about who had the number one song. It was about who could survive the chaos. To understand the music, you have to understand the mess. The industry in 1995 was absolutely volatile. Tupac Shakur was sentenced to prison. TLC, the biggest girl group on the planet, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, declaring debts of over $3.5 million, while Waterfalls was the number one song in the country. And in March, Tejano superstar Selena was tragically murdered. It was a massive cultural blow. Her album, Dreaming of You, would debut at number one later that year, a tragic reminder of a crossover potential we never got to see fully realized. But the defining mood of 1995 didn't come from a record label. It came from a courtroom in Los Angeles. On October 3rd, 1995, the O.J. Simpson verdict was read. 150 million people stopped what they were doing to watch. It was a moment that split the country in half. The racial tension in America was at breaking point, and that tension bled directly into the culture. Pop music couldn't just be happy anymore. The culture felt fractured. It felt on edge. In this atmosphere of uncertainty, even the Titans looked shaky. Janet Jackson was wrapping up a grueling 2-year Janet World Tour. Whitney Houston managed a number one hit with Exhale, Shoop Shoop. In previous years, Whitney would camp out at the top for months. The old guard was distracted, and that left the door wide open for a Canadian invasion. Now, if you look at the year-end Hot 100, you might be confused. Alanis Morissette's You Ought to Know only finished at number 38. You might be asking, how is she a main pop girl if she peaked at number 38? Well, here is the context that the chart positions hide. In 1995, Billboard rules were kind of weird. You couldn't chart on the Hot 100 unless you released a physical single. But Alanis's label didn't want to sell singles. They wanted to sell the album. So they withheld the single, forcing fans to buy the full CD for $18 just to hear the song. If you look at the airplay charts, the truth comes out. You Ought to Know hit number one on the Modern Rock Tracks chart. It crossed over to Top 40 Radio, and it stayed there for months. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the 90s charts, please take a second to hit that subscribe button. We are breaking down the main pop girl for every single year from 1990 to 2025, and trust me, you do not want to miss the chaos coming in 1996. That label strategy worked. Jagged Little Pill didn't just hit number one on Billboard 200, it stayed in the top 10 for over a year. By the end of 1995, it had moved 4 million copies in the US alone.
Right now, the name on everyone's lips is Alanis Morissette. The number one album is Jagged Little Pill, featuring the new single, You Learn. With 4 Grammy Awards and 4 smash singles, the album of the year is still Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill.
And it would go on to sell 33 million copies worldwide. She wasn't selling vocal perfection, she was selling rage. While the other girls were singing about forever love, Alanis was asking her ex-boyfriend if he thought of her when he was with his new girl. And the recording story is legendary. She didn't spend weeks polishing these tracks. She wrote You Ought to Know with producer Glenn Ballard in about 20 minutes.
With Alanis Morissette, when we wrote the Jagged Little Pill record, and we wrote most of the songs together in a day. In fact, every song on Jagged Little Pill was written in a day.
The vocal you hear on the record, that's the demo. It was a single take recorded late at night when she was exhausted and her vocal cords were raw. They tried to re-record it to make it sound nicer, but the magic was gone, so they kept the messy, angry original.
Glenn Ballard and I, who I wrote the record with, and he produced it, just to this day look at each other and shake our heads in disbelief about the whole process.
That imperfection is exactly why it connected with audiences on such a massive scale. This forced a huge shift. Suddenly labels didn't want the next Whitney, they wanted the next Alanis. And this opened the door for Fiona Apple, Meredith Brooks, and the entire Lilith Fair movement. Alanis destroyed the polished pop formula. But here's the plot twist that most people forget. Who do you think signed Alanis Morissette? Who allowed this anti-pop revolution to happen? The answer is Madonna. This is why Madonna is the smartest woman in the room. While she was busy polishing her own image with Take a Bow, she was simultaneously banking the checks from the woman who was destroying the pop image. Alanis was signed to Maverick Records, Madonna's label. Jagged Little Pill became the label's biggest success story. So while the media pitched this as the queen of pop versus the angry Gen Xer, Madonna was winning on both sides. And personally, she was having the comeback of a lifetime. After the backlash of the erotica era, Madonna needed to soften her image. Enter Take a Bow. This song spent 7 weeks at #1. That's her longest run at the top of the Hot 100 ever. Longer than Vogue, longer than Like a Virgin. But the song did something even more important than chart stats. It got her a job. For years, Madonna had been desperate to play Eva Peron in the movie adaptation of Evita, but the directors didn't think she had the vocal chops. They thought she was just a pop star. So Madonna didn't send an audition tape, she made Take a Bow.
I did launch a campaign, mostly phone calls and letter writing and incantations and lots of candle lighting in church and stuff like that.
Did you show up in guise at one point?
No, but what I did was I sent my Take a Bow video.
She specifically championed the music video with its cinematic, bullfighting aesthetic and 1940s styling as a visual audition. She sent the video to Evita director Alan Parker. He saw it, saw the discipline, saw the vocal control, and he finally cast her. This triggered its own chaos. When she flew to Argentina to film, she wasn't met with applause, she was met with death threats. There was graffiti on the walls of Buenos Aires that said, "Viva Evita, fuera Madonna." That means get out Madonna. But she stayed. She filmed it, and she won the Golden Globe. Madonna proves here that you don't have to be the new thing to win. You just have to own the new thing. But she still wasn't the main character. To find the true winner of 1995, we have to look at innovation. Alanis changed the attitude. Madonna mastered the business. But Mariah Carey? She changed the sound. If 1994 was Mariah's imperial phase, 1995 was her victory lap. Let's talk about Daydream.
Welcome to the Daydream.
Daydream is the brand new album from Mariah Carey. 12 sensational songs, including her hit single Fantasy. Wake up today to Daydream, the new album from Mariah Carey.
The lead single, Fantasy, moved 229,000 copies in its first week. And that brings us to the record she broke. Fantasy debuted at #1. She was the first female artist in history to do that. Think about that. Whitney didn't do it, Madonna didn't do it, Mariah did. But the numbers are only half the story. It's actually the remix that makes her the main pop girl. Mariah fought her label to include Old Dirty Bastard, a gritty Wu-Tang Clan rapper, on a pop track. The executives thought she was crazy. They wanted her to be a ballad singer. The story of this session is chaos. O.D.B showed up to the studio hours late, inebriated and screaming at a woman on his cell phone. He demanded Moët champagne. When the assistants brought him beer instead, he apparently smashed the bottle on the floor. Mariah's team was terrified. But Mariah? She loved it. He went into the booth and recorded that famous line.
Me and Mariah go back like babies with pacifiers.
And then fell asleep on the floor for 45 minutes. He woke up, recorded another line, and went back to sleep. When Mariah played the finished track for her husband, Sony CEO Tommy Mottola, he was confused. He reportedly listened to the rap verse and said, "What is that? I could do that." He couldn't be more wrong. By blending her pop vocals with that street hip-hop energy, she created the blueprint for the next 20 years of music. No Mariah in 1995 means no J-Lo and Ja Rule, no Beyonce and Jay-Z. And she didn't stop there. She closed 1995 by releasing One Sweet Day with Boys to Men. This song didn't just hit #1, it stayed there for 16 weeks. It set a record that would stand for 23 years. It was the longest running number one in US history until Despacito. She dominated the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end. In 1995, Mariah Carey wasn't just a singer, she was the architect of modern pop. So how do we rank a year this chaotic? My runner-up, Alanis Morissette. She had the cultural impact, and she forced the industry to stop relying on singles and start selling albums. She wins the award for Future Threat. My honorable mention? Madonna. 7 weeks at number one with Take a Bow is undeniable. And leveraging that song to get Evita while signing Alanis to her own label, that is some serious 4D pop chess. But the main pop girl of 1995 is Mariah Carey, a historic number one debut, the invention of the pop rap collaboration, and a song that held the all-time record for 2 decades. Everyone else was playing the game, Mariah was designing the board. But the 90s moved fast, and as we head into 1996, the war is escalating into a 4-way cage match. Mariah has the crown, but Celine Dion is about to release an album called Falling Into You that is going to challenge Mariah's sales numbers in a way we haven't seen yet. And don't sleep on Toni Braxton. She's about to drop a ballad so massive it threatens to eclipse the entire industry. The battle for the biggest voice on earth is just getting started. Don't miss it.